Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess a lot of you get your information from Google, WhatsApp, Facebook, and people around you. Yeah, friends that will talk. But today we're going to talk a little bit further than just information. We're going to talk about data, all right, and what it means. So we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic today. And let me introduce the speaker for today. His name is Vernon. He is the CEO and founder of Energia Labs. Yeah, just a small thing. So he's created this software called Cicada. And for a brief moment, I actually forgot his name, and Vernon is a friend of mine, so I forgot his name, and I was like, Cicada dude, let's invite him. All right, so well, I'm not sure if you're going to talk about Cicada, Vernon, but yeah, that's a little bit of marketing for you. But anyway, Vernon is the CEO of Energia Labs, and he will be talking about driving digitization towards the data economy. All right, so Vernon, over to you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Joel, for that introduction. Yes, my friend who forgot my name. Don't worry about it. I also, when I was looking for the link today, I forgot yours. No, I'm just kidding. All right, I'm just kidding. All right. So yes, good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight. Maybe I'll just start by sharing my screen. All right. So, as Joel has introduced me, my name is Vernon. I am the founder and CEO of Energia Labs. We operate a cloud retail data analytics platform called Cicada, like the insect, right? And we actually help retailers to collect and analyze their data to help them bring improvements to their organization. And our clients range from F&B operators to supermarket chains, to pharmacies, to convenience stores, malls users, even FMCG companies utilize our service as well, just because of the way we collect and structure the data and analyze it. Right. And this evening, I'd like to talk to you or share with you about how organizations are driving their digital strategies or their digitalization strategies towards the new data economy. Now, digitalization is the buzzword of the moment, right? Especially in view of the MCO and the pandemic around us. So many companies could not operate during this time. And so with all of this happening, it's forcing businesses to adopt new technologies to adapt to the situation. But so I'd like to unpack that whole idea of digitalization for you guys tonight, and hopefully provoke you to think about how digitalization and subsequently data that is the output from it or the byproduct of it can be used for the benefit of your business or your industry or even your professional career, right? So that's our objective tonight. Sorry, right. So, I'm not sure if you have, but it's actually becoming very popular in government circles and if you read any of the business news. There's this new adage called "data is the new oil," and that was actually coined by The Economist magazine in May 2017. And it says, "Data are to this age what oil was to the last one, a driver of growth and change." In fact, the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs in January 2019 says, "Data is shaping the future of humanity." It's very big words, right? And it goes on, in fact, the same UN report goes on to say that the production, distribution, and consumption of digital data, that is the data economy, are driving rapid advances in machine learning, artificial intelligence, and automation. These are all very big words with very big claims. Does it stand up to the hype, right? When you hear all of this, does it stand up to the hype? We hear buzz phrases like big data, which gets venture capitalists all excited and dizzy, and government economists drone on and on about how it's going to bring our productivity to the next level, how we're going to be a high income nation because of IR or this big data, right? But what does it mean to the typical, to the man on the street, to the typical small and medium-sized business owner, or to the professional, right? Can they even play a part in this ecosystem? Or are they just passive actors destined to live and die by the blessings and vagaries of the all-powerful big data-driven corporations? That's what we want to talk about. Sorry. Apologies, it's not moving. Right, so data, is it more hype or is it more help? Let's actually examine some of the applications that we see today. Right? In the medical world, big data, or say machine learning, is being deployed to help those pathology labs and pathologists to actually diagnose breast cancer. And where human or manual monitoring or observation or investigation has led to about a 96% accuracy in detecting breast cancer, with the aid of machine learning and big data, it has actually brought that up to a 99.5% confidence level. Now that means that in America alone, 54,000 cases are diagnosed properly each year, just with that small little margin of correction, right? And also with advances in medical sciences, there's a new field called gene therapy, where they are trying to apply medication or medicine directly to your gene type, to your unique genetic makeup, so that the medicine has far greater effect, far greater impact. And so the big data, machine learning, is all being used to sequence every individual's genes much faster, much cheaper, in order to drive gene therapy as an effective solution in the medical world. In the very more, I guess, less sophisticated world of agriculture, it's actually very much more sophisticated. We just think of farmers and all, but it's actually not true. In agriculture, they are using technology, these big data, to actually start helping to plan out and analyze crop yields and help to predict crop yields and to improve the yield of these agricultural products. And this is actually a major thing in the nowadays. Food security is a huge, a vital matter for every nation, every government, right? So in order to secure their food for their country, the ability to predict the crop yield is extremely important, as well as for commerce, international commerce of exports and imports as well. In fact, in Malaysia, also it's very much being used now in our palm oil sector. Now, I found it I was actually quite shocked to hear from an expert in this field that every year 30% of our national yield of palm oil actually goes to waste because we cannot harvest it in time, right? Or we do not harvest it effectively or efficiently. So all these large plantations and plantation owners, they're starting to deploy drone technology. They're starting to deploy this data collection techniques to start seeing the pattern of the crop fruitation, right? They're starting to fruition, right? Crop fruition, sorry. And then they are using AI to actually help the workers, the plantation workers, to plan how they're going to go through the plantation to actually harvest the crop in a more effective and efficient way. For e-commerce, now that's a no-brainer. We know how e-commerce is using data to drive its sales, right? In fact, it's probably one of the more hotly debated forms of whether digitization and the data economy is actually helpful to the human race in general, because the moment you log on to a website, a cookie starts tracking you, and as you, for one whole day, as you are surfing through the internet, as you move from website to website, that cookie follows you like some unwelcome ghost, trying to see everything that you do so that it can feed back data to the e-commerce sites, or those people who want to, advertisers who want to sell products to you, so who want to understand you. Computing. If you know computing, you might have heard of Moore's law, where we've actually predicted, Moore, he was a computer engineer, he actually said that every 2 years, the microchip that powers your computers will actually double in its size, in its capacity. And actually, in the last 10 years, there was that concern that it was no longer physically capable of doing that. But with the use of big data, right? And what they did was they were actually able to analyze and to actually pack the chip more and more, so that now it is really powering up our supercomputers, our quantum computers, that is doing all the major calculations, that's driving our GPS, that is driving our weather satellites and all of that. So these are all very big things happening in the world using big data. But once again, so we can say that yes, it's a lot of help. The help actually provokes the hype. There's a lot of expectation for data in this world today. But what about us? What about the smaller players? What role do we play? How can we use it for our benefit, right? And so let's put a bookmark here, and we're going to go into digitalization. So we're going to put a bookmark on the idea of big data and the data economy. We're going to go to something we're going to take a step back and look at digitalization itself. Now, what is digitalization? Okay, so it actually, as we tackle that topic, I actually want to talk about, I'm sure you've heard about the Industrial Revolution 4.0. And so what is IR 4.0? The government hypes up about it. Once again, the newspapers talk about it. So I'm just going to give you a brief history. The first industrial revolution was when we discovered steam power, right, and water power as well. And so that started the industrial age in Europe. So the European powers in the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s started being able to mass produce products, right? And that's why colonization went about. They started extracting more and more resources from the colonies in order to fuel their industrial revolution. And this was not just in Europe, but it was in America, and Japan also started adopting this industrialization. And then after that, the next industrial revolution was when we discovered electrical power, right? And then we started being able to be more efficient in deploying our assembly lines to do mass production with electrical power. And the next industrial revolution came after that. It came about the 60s all the way to the 2000s, right? We saw the introduction of information systems, of automation of products using electronics, those programmable logic controllers. You see them all in factories nowadays. IT systems and robotics became the hype and the main driver and engine for growth from the 50s, 60s all the way to the early 2000s. And yeah, so if you visit our factories nowadays, you will see all of that in action. Now, all of this has industrial connotations, as though it's manufacturing. But even if you're not a manufacturer, all of these industrial revolutions actually impacted you as well in the commercial world. For example, without the second industrial revolution of electrical power, we would not be able to power our cities at night, to operate at night. You would not be able to open your businesses, your shops, and do commerce at night. But because of electrical power, we can do that. So as a byproduct of this industrial revolution, the rest of the world also is impacted, right? And of course, in your workplace, when you depends how old you are, right? But if you were starting work in the 80s, you will start getting introduced, your companies will start adopting things like Microsoft Word, right, as a word processing tool. And this was new at that time, and it was also a bit expensive. That's why we pirated it a lot in Malaysia. So yes, and so we started using Microsoft Word, and we started using Excel, and we started using PCs, and then laptops slowly crept into the game. And that's completely altered the way we work. And it's altered it in actually quite a revolutionary way as well outside of the industrial sector, because before that, everything was pen and paper, right? Pen and paper. Now we could actually digitize everything that we did. We could digitize our work. And by digitizing our work, we actually started, organizations started being able to store digital records of its knowledge and its expertise and its projects and its customers for, theoretically forever. These records, as long as you maintain them properly, will not get lost. And so the idea of of organizational knowledge became key. That is, that every staff, every colleague, every person in an organization is a knowledge worker, right? They possess intelligence, they possess certain skill sets and expertise, and if we could document all of that, it will then add to the organizational memory, the organizational knowledge of a company. And so when that person left, his knowledge did not leave with him. And that's why, nowadays you see the, you get that phrase, every time someone leaves a company, make sure the handover is done properly. We want to make sure that all his knowledge is tapped, is stored, so that there is a smooth handover and there is no disruption to our organization, right? And to how we do our business at all. And now we've gone into the fourth industrial revolution. And that is because of the third industrial revolution, where we're collecting so much data, right? Then with the improvement in our bandwidth connectivity between nations, our computing power, now that we can store things in the cloud, we don't need to have, no organization needs to have massive servers and computers of their own anymore. Everyone can now just put it to somewhere else. Someone else will manage that for them, right? And that, with the storing of all these massive amounts of data and the transfer of this data, we could now start analyzing and processing this data in a very efficient way, an effective way. So now we could start predicting behaviors, we can start predicting trends, patterns, we can grant a lot more automation, autonomy to our systems to run themselves, so we can do predictors for maintenance in factories, maintenance in ships and planes, all of that. So data becomes a major driver of the fourth industrial revolution. But we're still talking about digitalization, and our government has just, even before the MCO, it rolled out a grant for SMEs to digitalize themselves, right? They can claim up to 5,000 ringgit, 50% or up to 5,000 ringgit per company in order to adopt HR systems, to adopt point of sales, to go into CRM, customer relationship management technology, all of that. And so that's happening. That's what the government is trying to drive at now. And then, of course, because of the MCO, the government decided to, in for a penny, in for a pound, started another grant called the Smart Automation Grant, where SMEs are encouraged now up to 200,000 ringgit per company, right? 50% or up to 200,000 ringgit. They can adopt technologies that will help them to really drive automation or digitalization in the company, where they can see very strong productive outputs, or increase in revenue or decrease in costs. And so the government is focusing on this. But wait a minute, aren't we supposed to be already entering Industrial Revolution 4.0? Actually, the challenge in Malaysia and many of the third world countries, actually sometimes you also see it in the first world countries, the more developed countries, is that the SMEs haven't really, a large portion of the SMEs have not really adopted even the digitalization of the 60s all the way to the 2000s. When the government launched GST in 2015, the Customs Department estimated that there were 300,000 small retailers, whether you're kedai runcits or you are dobis or little restaurants, that did not even have a point of sale. They didn't have a cash register. They were still using pen and paper, or those really old cash registers, right, where they had no connection to the internet. And this caused two issues. One, these people could not charge GST, and two, the government could not track GST. So for the government, this was a major issue for them at that point in time. Other companies as well was still not adopting. We were not adopting digitalization in ways that would improve our workforce, improve our skill sets. Now, the SME sector contributes about 38, almost 39% of our national GDP. And because they are not operating at an optimal level, it's actually, the government estimates that it actually drags down the economy. It drags down our ability to upskill ourselves, to actually do further innovation. So that's why this drive into digitalization right now. Now, other benefits to digitalization besides, the government wanting to track GST? Of course there is. Of course there is, right? So the first thing, right, when you digitalize yourself is increase visibility, not just your visibility about your operations, about what's happening in your company, but also your visibility to your clients, to your customer base, as well as to your potential partners in your ecosystem that you are inhabiting, your business is inhabiting. You can find more channel partners, you can find more suppliers, so that visibility becomes very important, right? And the next thing is your customer engagement. So if you have a proper CRM system, you can actually start tracking who your customers are, what are their behaviors, what's their demography, what's their average spend, what products are they generally interacting with, and that can help focus you on your branding, focus you on the products that you offer, focus you on the services that you provide. Teamwork, right? Clearly, the more digital you go, the more teamwork and therefore the higher productivity you can introduce into your company. Now with with Zoom, with Microsoft Teams, even Google has the new Google Meet. Ways of working and collaborating together, even when you're not in the same office space or not in the same physical space, is now so much easier. It's more convenient and it's actually very productive. How you can hand over work from one person to another person and actually track it. That is revolutionary for our time, right? And we're no longer limited or restricted by distance. I have a staff all the way in Boston, USA, and we collaborate. And there's no issue with collaboration, even with the international distance. And of course, decision making, because you're deriving all this data, you are digitalizing all this information. You now have a historical pool of data that your organization can call upon when it needs to make decisions on marketing strategies, which group of clients we should target to increase our revenue base. How can we cut our costs? What is inefficient in our system? And so all of this is driving it right now. So what I want to do is I want to take you through, at least because I work in the retail sector, right? And my clients are all retail, I'm analyzing retail data. I want to show you examples of how digitalization is benefiting the retail sector, right? So, and hopefully, as I mentioned earlier, you can extrapolate that to your own fields, to your own industries, and see how you can do it yourselves as well, how you can think about it. So, one of the key things we look at whenever we're analyzing a retailer, right, is we want to help them to understand their store performances. How are they, if they are, especially all our clients generally are chains, right? How are their stores performing in comparison to one another, right? How do you group them? Is it format of the store that's driving revenue, or is it just location, or is it the size of the store that is driving revenue? We want to help our clients understand that, because when they want to expand later on, then they are very clear what they need to do, how they should expand. We want to track the payment trends of their customers. Are they using, how is e-wallets trending? Is it growing? And how can we help to reduce cash, because cash is a very inefficient form of payment in today's day and age, and also opens up a lot of issues, which is the next one, sales audit, a lot of issues for fraudulent behavior by your staff at your cash registers, right? We want to help you track your SKU efficiencies. How are your products performing compared to one another? Are your hero products driving, how much percentage of revenue are they driving? Are your top 10 products driving 40% of your revenue? If so, what are your bottom performing products? Are your bottom 20 products costing you 10% of your costs but driving only 4% of your revenue? Then you need to start thinking of how you want to use, how you want to rearrange your inventory, right? We want to see your transaction patterns. We want to know what's your store's busy periods, what are the non-busy periods, the off-peak periods. We want to see, because human beings are habitual. We're creatures of habit. How are your customers coming into your stores? How are they even interacting with you online? At what times? At what stage? One thing I learned is that LinkedIn, for business use, LinkedIn is popular, or more posts are put up between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. as well as 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. These are the two times where most people log on to LinkedIn during the business working day. And so if you're going to post on LinkedIn, that is the time you want to post on LinkedIn, right? We want to be able to help you track your categories, how they're working, comparing against one another, how you're going to promote each one, And also, we want to track your entire group revenue. Are there certain brands or certain brands of stores that are doing better for you as opposed to other ones? How will it affect your decision as a group? Okay. So, and I'm going to drill down into the retail and F&B sector in particular. We want to understand how is data shaping the retail and F&B sector. Right? We help our stores to sales data. We are using it to accurately track and analyze customer behavior, store performance, inventory efficiency. Just based on just these three broad areas, we then help with the analysis from that. We then help our clients or help them to understand their sales growth as well as their growth strategy, their expansion plans. And we also help them to reduce their cost as well, right? Now, whenever we are dealing with when we're trying to interact with data, we have to be very clear at the very onset of it. What is the objective that we're trying to achieve? What are we actually trying to get out of the data? So we need to be very clear about the questions that we want to ask the data so that we can actually draw insights from it. So that's actually step one in any data project that you want to undertake. And so the question, the framing of the question and the framing of the objective becomes crucial. So when you are trying to understand customer behavior, these are the questions that we ask of their data, that our cloud platform asks of their data, right? What times are the customers coming into the outlet? What are they ordering? What items are they mixing together, right? What is their average wallet size? What prices are they most comfortable with, and how are they paying? Because here, in understanding their customer behavior, we have seen clients then start to shape and form their marketing strategy, their promotions, how they create their set menus, or how they create even what do you call that? During festivals, you have those fruit baskets and all that you want to give out, those hampers, right? How you want to mix them all together, and that then drives the customers to consume and buy more because they feel, hey, you understand me, right? We also want to help them to understand their store performance, right? So the questions we ask is, which outlets generate the most revenues? Why? Which outlets deliver the best EBITDA, the earnings before tax and depreciation and amortization? How does outlet format affect revenue and EBITDA, right? So for example, if we see nowadays, so your convenience stores, very much driven by Family Mart. Family Mart is not so much a convenience store as it is a convenient F&B outlet, right? It's very fast when you go there, you just grab food very quickly. Yes, they do sell some of the other traditional things a convenience store does, but their whole focus is on F&B. So when that happened, 7-Eleven and MyNews started following suit. They started having stores, concept stores, where they were now focusing more on F&B as well. So with the data that comes in, the store data that comes in, the sales data, we can now analyze, is this format working? Is it helping drive your sales? Is this actually a more popular form of a format as compared to your traditional convenience store? If so, then when you do your expansion plans, when you're planning out for new outlets or when you're planning to refit your outlets, we know what format to use. Is it the next question is, how does outlet location affect revenue and EBITDA, right? So is it location based? We always know real estate and with retail as well. It's always location, location, location. But to what extent? Especially nowadays when we have such a huge mall presence in the Klang Valley, right? With so many malls with one another, is it still a location in a mall that makes sense to you, or is it location in a town center in the high street that is actually better for you? And so once again, when you plan your expansion, when you're talking about placing or locating new stores, that data will be useful. Does outlet size affect your revenue and EBITDA? I have a client, right? They run a popular restaurant chain. I won't name them for confidentiality reasons, but the data was very clear, right? The outlets that were bringing in the most revenue were the large format outlets, the large format restaurants. And the ones that were bringing the least revenue were the small format restaurants. So size had a huge impact on their revenue. So what was, and when we tracked their profit as well, clearly the large format stores delivered far more profit to them. So then, once again, if they were to expand, if they were to plan new stores, would they even bother with smaller format stores, or should they just focus on the large format restaurant? Another thing we help them track is which outlets have the most audit issues, because you are trusting your managers to run your stores, you're trusting your supervisors, but you also want to track them, right? And if you start seeing a lot of suspicious transactions happening at the stores, perhaps you need to improve the SOP, perhaps you need to fire the manager. Now, the data will give you that information, then you can then take the next steps to decide what you want to do. Inventory efficiency. You want to understand what are your hero products, and how do your hero products contribute to your top line? How does it contribute to your bottom line? Which products are not moving, and how does your bottom performing products contribute to your top line, your bottom line, and how effective are your promotions in moving your products? This is actually quite crucial for restaurants. Many restaurants in Malaysia, they plan their menu according to what their chef can cook. And so they like to have hundreds, if not 200s of SKUs, of products, of things you can order from their menu. But very often, you will find that they're actually known for a handful, maybe the top 20 items on their menu actually accounts for 60-70% of the revenue. And the bottom performing, even sometimes the bottom performing 100 products actually contributes 3% of revenue. So the question is, what is your branding? What are you trying to bring your customers into what for, right? What are they coming for? And should you even keep the other products in your inventory? Is it necessary, or should you just get rid of them and focus on the most productive lines, menu items? So sales growth. Result of the data analysis helps retailers to develop promotions to drive customer footfall during off-peak periods, or to enhance peak period performance. It helps the promotions to develop promotions on the correct mix of products to increase your average wallet spend. Now, there are generally two ways for retailers to improve their revenue. One is to bring in more customers. Two is to increase the average spend of each customer at their outlets, right? So, if you understand the correct mix of products you need to bring in for your customers, that will help hopefully increase the average wallet spend. Now, having the right partnerships with the right payment channel partners also helps to attract new customers. How you plan your seasonal campaigns. This is, of course, in Europe and in cold countries, in fashion, it's the kind of food that you eat or the clothes that you wear. In Malaysia, our seasons are, of course, Chinese New Year. It's all religious. Chinese New Year or cultural. Hari Raya, Christmas, and Deepavali. All those seasonal campaigns, what do you put out, right? How do you develop your promotions to introduce new products, and to develop strategies to reduce inventory and phase out less popular product lines. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, to improve or to drive their store expansion, which format of stores to focus on, which locations, what is the optimum amount of space to bring in the EBITDA, and what are the SOPs to ensure maximum store efficiency and minimum shrinkage and pilferage. So this is what we're doing with our clients, and this is what is actually driving their growth. Right? So these are some of our case studies, right? Client A, their bottom performing 100 SKUs, their bottom 100 products, only contributed to 3% of their group revenue. So and it actually took about 5% of their cost. So now with that data, they started to refocus their menu on their key products and to reduce their cost of inventory. Another client, they're an F&B chain. They actually studied their off-peak hours, their median spend, that is their average wallet spend of their customers, how their customers were combining their key SKUs, their key hero products in their orders, and with that, they actually came up with a promotion that drove an additional 5,000 customers per month into their outlets during the off-peak hours, and that contributed to an additional 8% annual growth to their group revenue. So there was an 8% growth annually to their group revenue just by creating the right promotion. Client C noticed that their customers were preferring well, there were two credit cards that their customers were preparing, and one was CIMB, one was Maybank. And what they did was they decided to actually work with Maybank to develop a promotion, especially for Maybank credit cards. And just based on that, they were actually able to increase their revenue by 15% and actually drive the bank card utilization to 40% of all transactions. Now, in Malaysia, cash is still king. Cash generally accounts for 65% of all transactions in the Klang Valley, and outside the Klang Valley, that drives up all the way to 70+%. Credit card transactions takes up most of the balance, and interestingly, e-wallet is still in the single digits, low 1, 2, 3%. But of course, there's a lot of room to grow there. And so for this promotion to have driven 40% of all transactions to the Maybank credit card alone was a huge win, not just for Maybank, but also for that customer, for that retailer. Another retailer had a lot of issues tracking promotional vouchers, and then they had a lot of shrinkage and pilferage. So the polite words of saying that their staff was stealing from them, right? And so what we helped them to do was to see and track every voucher that was being used in their stores, and whether or not it was being used inappropriately. And once again, that helped to reduce their shrinkage and pilferage. So we know that at the small business level or any organizational level, there is a lot of value for people to utilize their own data for their own use. But what we are also detecting is that brand owners and FMCG, so those people up the supply chain, your suppliers, your manufacturers, they also need to find new ways to sell and promote themselves. And they actually want your consumption data. They actually want your data because it informs their decision making as well. So you may think your data sits in a silo in your organization, but actually no, there's actually a great demand for your data outside by people in your ecosystem as well. And so what we are noticing now is that all these FMCGs, brand owners, market research organizations, even the government is stepping in to buy data from these businesses, right? So in my case, retailers. So they're starting to engage all these SMEs, these small retailers, and say, look, we want to incentivize you to share your data with us because that is going to drive the data economy. And so they will incentivize either through product discounts, or they may give you even further market research information, or they may even give you cash incentives for that data. And so that drives the wider scale of big data and the data economy, right? So for you guys and for all of us, and for anyone who wants to start engaging in the value chain of data in the new data economy, here's one way to look at it, right? First, you need to understand your data. Look at your data and say, what data are you generating? What data are you collecting? And then start saying, how do I use it internally? And what kind of intangible and tangible returns I can get out of it? How can I calculate the value of the data that I utilize when I make my decisions, right? Perhaps it could be in terms of the pricing that I do, the promotions that I do, and the kind of revenue it brings in. Or it could be your decision making in terms of how you hire your staff, how you improve your processes. So that one is very clear. Then the second one is actually, how does your data interact with the wider ecosystem that you inhabit? And who actually needs that data? Now, I want to be clear, it doesn't always have to be monetary gain that drives this. It could be industry specific. For example, in the medical world, once again, there is a push for clinics and pharmacies to actually share the data of at least the aggregate data of the medicine that's being dispensed, so that insurance company, pharma company, and governments can understand what are the medications that are being utilized in each region, in each locality, which are the most ones, so that governments can formulate their health programs, so that pharma companies can focus their R&D money on research, and for insurance companies to actually develop new policies. So I hope that helps you to actually think about how your data interacts in your company, in your profession, and in the wider community as well. And that's it from me. And I would like, if you have any questions, this is where I will be joined by my co-founder, Justin, If you have any questions, we'll be happy to engage.
All right, thank you, Vernon. Yes, and then Justin will be joining Vernon for any specific questions. Yeah, thanks. Just to highlight to all of us, if you've got any questions, you might want to drop it in the chat, or you can go to the link. Yeah, it's on screen, tiny.cc/askwater. I'm sorry, I didn't share it earlier, but yeah, it's always open, and you can go ahead and drop questions in the chat. So you've got multiple options. And if you're viewing this on Facebook Live, you can go ahead and drop some comments. Yeah, we'll be happy to answer your questions there as well. All right. So Vernon, we'll just go through the bunch of questions that I have already. Yeah, so let's go. Well, Vernon or Justin. So Vernon, you mentioned earlier, data is like oil, right? And here's the thing: oil is a commodity. So is data some form of a commodity? And could the one controlling data even control the rise and fall of prices? Could cause wars, things like that. Is it the same way that data has also become a commodity? Yeah, over to you.
Oh, that's an excellent question, right? So I said data is like oil, right? But data is actually extremely unique because even when data is consumed, it is not depleted, it is not diminished, right? Like oil or any other commodity, data remains. Even though it is consumed, it remains. And its value actually is very much dependent on its relevance to the question that is being asked. So it may have no value to group A, but it has immense value to group B. And so it's about finding the right question, who's asking the right questions about the data, right? And how relevant it is to them. And data over time can either increase or decrease, once again, depending on relevance, right? Depending on the question. And another thing is that data, in it, one point of data, let's just say, like if you can quantify that way, has almost no value whatsoever. But once you aggregate it, it has immense value. So that's why the big data the data economy is crucial. So yes, in fact, this accounting and finance world are already asking the question of, is data a commodity? Can it actually be listed as an asset in the balance sheet of a company? And if you do that, how do you value it? Right? Is it like goodwill, or is it really like an inventory? And that is the question that is going on right now, because there is a lot of value in data. Data, because it's being transacted even now, has shown that it has inherent worth as well as tangible worth. Right? So there is a school of thought that says right now data should be on your balance sheet. Can it start wars? Can it start conflicts? Yes. The 5G battle that you see right now between the United States and China is a war for data, right? The country that can supply the 5G that most countries use can then control, or in effect control the flow of data in these countries and internationally as well. America not wanting to surrender the 5G space, because 5G is meant to drive this whole data economy, right? Everything's going to be interconnected. All these, every point of data will come through the 5G network. And of course, the question of spying, who's going to spy on that data? Well, both of them will be, in my point of view, right? So as Mahathir said when he said, we'll go with 5G because you know what, we don't care who spies on us. But ultimately, it is the control of the flow of data that is actually driving this conflict right now.
All right. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. It's interesting to know that yeah, data is something that could potentially cause wars and things like that. And even more exciting is it is going to be something that can be traded. Wow, that is news to me. That's news to all of us. Yeah. Thanks for that very detailed explanation as well. We've got more questions here. I'm gonna ask this question from Terry, who's just dropped this in our chat. So what is the delivery percentage in the F&B sector? So, well, I think the whole MCO period was kind of a catalyst to what was already happening. So places, I mean, companies like Grab and Food Panda. Now you've got Grab Food, Food Panda. You've got others like Damakan, all the food delivery business people. So how big of a percentage are they in this sector? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So all right. So actually, during the MCO, we could actually track how badly the F&B retailers were impacted. Right. Within 2 weeks of the MCO, the data was clear that F&B those that had actually opened had lost 85% of their revenue. So only 15% of their typical revenue was being generated during the period of the MCO. And of that 15%, almost all of it was driven by deliveries, right? And the delivery companies charge on average about 30% of the revenue. And so what that meant for these F&B operators was that they only could generate 12% of revenue that as compared to their normal days. So they were really struggling. They were really crying, right? Really crying for assistance at that point in time. Now, post MCO, that has kind of risen now to about, with all our social distancing rules and all that, to about 50-60% of their average revenue. And now, especially now, as more normalcy is being restored to the market, it's starting to creep back up to their normal levels. Those that didn't make it, that couldn't sustain, have already shut down. But those who have sustained are, now trying to claw back the revenue that they have lost over all those times. So it's a deep issue, a deep challenge right now. As a topic of, if talking about the delivery companies, are they, how many percent? We don't have the clear numbers on that because some of the way some of our clients collect their data, they're not very clear on it. But basically, during the MCO, 90%, 95% of all delivery, of all orders was done through delivery, right? And during this season, now people are going up again. I think our guesstimate, based on what our clients that we do have data on, that's gone down to about 40-30% of their orders right now.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for that stats. I think that's very helpful to reduce by up to 85%. That yes. Is quite.
In fact, sorry, I just want to say this. If you have a restaurant that you like and you want to support, please go there and eat. I know. Or go and pick up. If you're not feeling secure and safe about going and dining in there, go and pick up the food. Don't order a delivery because it eats up too much of their margins. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks. Yeah. Pick it up.
All respect to Grab and Food Panda. I don't dislike you. It's just the facts. Yeah. All right.
All right. Thanks for that, Vernon. Okay, we've got another question here. Okay, this sent to me privately. What kind of regulatory framework changes are needed to happen before we can have an open, data-driven economy? Yeah, wow, that's
a fantastic question. Who asked that question? Okay, no, I'm not going to. But that's a fantastic question, right? We're working actually this is we're in early days, right? Okay, if you look at the e-commerce side of things, it's a far more mature thing where data, whether you like it or not, our data is being transacted on a daily basis there already. When you're on Facebook, when you're on Twitter, when you're on Instagram, they are harvesting your data for consumption. Ad companies are harvesting your data for commercial benefit, right? To the point where Europe has now come up I think in 2018 or 2019, late 2018, 2019, they implemented what is known as the GDPR, the European Data Protection Act. And basically, how they control the transaction of at least personal online data or even personal data in any shape or form, whether you sign up for a credit card, whether you sign up for a membership card, a loyalty program, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, all of that is now governed very heavily in Europe, much to the annoyance of these huge e-commerce giants like Facebook, like Google, like Amazon even, right? Because a few things have happened. Firstly, the data must reside within Europe. It cannot exit Europe. That's one key thing. The second thing is that no personal data can be stored without express consent, and that consent kind of has to be kind of reiterated over and over again. And everyone has a right to see what data is being stored and all that. It becomes extremely onerous for these large companies to actually keep your data. And they actually penalize for every infraction up to 10% of group revenue for each infraction. So it's not, so you can't just form a small equivalent of Sindiran Berhad, or if it goes down, it goes down. No, it actually goes for the whole group. Right? So it's actually very stringent in Europe. Elsewhere, not so much. In Malaysia, we launched our PDPA, our Personal Data Protection Act. Its enforcement is still in its infancy. And yeah, so we're coming to grips with that, right? We're coming to grips with that right now. Now, if we take away the e-commerce, take away the online, how about the offline stuff, like what I do? How is it being governed right now? Now we're going to trade data. So all these guys generating data, how are they going to trade data? That actually is, we're in new territory. And we're actually working very closely with MDEC right now on how to actually formulate the framework, the legal framework of how to exchange and trade this data. And so we're actually in the midst of trying to launch a data exchange to help retailers and who are the data producers with the FMCGs, the market research organizations, the brand owners, the government, anyone else, to bridge the gap between them so that these data can be more effectively exchanged. But the framework, we're still working on it because there's no real legal framework. You can exchange the data, there's no restrictions on it, but because of that, we want to make sure that how does it work or operate vis-a-vis the PDPA? How do we ensure that the everyday guy on the street, his data is not the one that's being manipulated or exposed in these transactions? So that's what we're working out right now.
All right, thanks Vernon. We are almost running out of time, but I would just want to squeeze in two more questions. So you did talk about a little bit about data protection and how things are working, especially in Europe, and how we are here in Malaysia and yeah, with our PDPA. So maybe Vernon, you can give some comments, for us as individuals, how do we put safeguards in place with regards to our data? So yeah, in terms of getting this data out, and making sure that companies don't get their hands on stuff that they're not supposed to. Yeah, how do we safeguard ourselves?
Okay. So online, just be very clear what you're ticking yes to, right? So read the terms and conditions. So Facebook, I think all the larger players, they have been forced to be more conscious about protecting our data rights, and then you have to they literally say, okay, do you want to opt in to the data sharing, or do you not want to opt in? So that's you generally need to be aware of that. And even in your everyday setting, when you fill in forms and all that, be careful what kind of, don't sign up for every discount and every voucher. If it's really useful, then yes, you sign up, but they will trade your data. Right. Marketers daily trade your data.
Right. So just be wise, be vigilant, and don't just give your information to everyone. Yeah. Thanks for that, Vernon. Maybe just a closing question. So we've talked a lot about regulation. We've talked about data protection, things like that. But maybe Vernon, just your personal comments. What is the outlook of the retail sector? We've seen the whole situation with MCO and COVID-19 cause the retail to go very much online, e-commerce. But just retail as in general. So you've talked a lot about restaurants and stores, both physical and online stores. Yeah. So just a couple of your comments on the whole retail sector. Yeah.
Okay. That's a huge question, and I know we're running out of time. So, all right. We don't generally deal with we can't generally answer that question as a retail sector as a whole. Of course, we have to deal with it in segments, right? So, in terms of the trends that we've been seeing, lifestyle and F&B, that's always that's on an uptrend. That's not going to be a challenge, right? Your not typical fashion, IT gadget, brick and mortar, and your bookstores, they are the ones who've been adversely impacted by e-commerce, by online, right? And even during this MCO, that's even worse. So that's why right now you're hearing so much news about all these famous brands shutting down. Even Harrods in London is letting go of staff. So yes, but is there? What is the future though? And actually, the answer to that is actually convergence, right? You need you as a retailer, you need to have online presence and offline presence. You need to have both. Convergence is the key here, and the ability to create an experience, a seamless quality experience from online to offline and offline to online, seems to be the key in your growth strategy. Because there are two different types of people out there, and depending once again on your industry, which vertical you're in. Convenience can play a key role, and that's where the e-commerce players come in. But touch and feel and experience is also a huge factor in delivering sales, right? So how you can marry convenience and that touch and feel experience together will help you to drive your growth.
All right. Thanks for that. Yeah, Vernon. Yeah, well, it's not one or the other. It's mixing the both and getting, well, essentially getting the right mix, right?
Right.
For your sector. Yeah. Thanks for that, Vernon. Yeah, we are at the end of today's Biz Talk, but I'll give you a couple of seconds, Vernon, just to give us some closing remarks, something you want to leave with all of us here, all the viewers this evening.
Yeah. You started us off with a game of, where do you get your information from, right? And actually, I thought it was a great game because whether you like it or not, that information, that news that you're getting, whether it's through WhatsApp, whether it's through your girlfriend, whether it's through your Facebook and all that, that's informing your decisions. That's actually driving you to certain patterns of behavior. It influences how you vote, it influences how you buy, it influences how you interact with people. So information in its purest form is data, right? And so if that can impact you on a day-to-day level, imagine that how it impacts the world when it's aggregated on a global level, right? And so in your industries, in your sectors, in your profession, understanding the power of data in your field will probably do a lot to drive your own success in the future.
All right. Thanks for that, Vernon. Yeah, very
Joel.
wise words of wisdom. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's all appreciate Vernon. If you can give him a virtual clap or even a real clap if you're in your homes, let's thank him. Yeah, thanks Vernon for your time. Really appreciate all your knowledge and insights. And yeah, you are Vernon, but also still the cicada dude to me.
Thanks, Joel.
Right. Take care.
All right.
Take care.
All
See you
right.
again soon.
Thanks.
All right.
All right.
So we've come to the end of the talk. Hello. Yeah. We've come to the end of the talk this evening, I'd like to introduce you that there's a talk coming up next week as well. It's going to be weekly. So next week we're going to have Simon Ulrich. He's the CEO of Regov Technologies, and he'll be talking about blockchain for business, understanding the fundamentals. So if you've heard of this term called blockchain, things like that, he's going to give us an understanding of the fundamentals. So do log in to the link you see on screen. The registration is open right now, so you can go ahead and register, book your places early, because it's going to be a very interesting talk as well. Also, not next week, but the following Wednesdays, that's 2 Wednesdays from now. Yeah, it's on a Wednesday. I'll say that again, Wednesday. We're going to have this live talk. So it's questions about life, general things that you have questions and even doubts for. Yeah, go ahead and ask your questions. And this Wednesday, the 2 Wednesdays time, we're going to have Alex Stark, who is in the Ravi Zacharias International Ministries Asia Pacific, and he is going to be talking about Doubt, a Guide for Humans. So if you've got any questions, any doubts, yeah, go ahead and sign up for this talk. Yeah, the places are just recently opened, so it's in yeah, over 2 weeks time. So go ahead and register, invite your friends. It's going to be an interesting talk as well. So if you guys would like to connect with us here at Workplace at the River, or any of us in the team, we deal a lot with workplace people. So whether it's anything from finding mentorship to finding networking solutions, things like that, you want to connect with different people from your industry or other industries, do log on to this link, tiny.cc/waterconnect, and we would love to connect you with people from other industries or even your same industries as well. So this is kind of like dropping your business card at the end of a networking session. So we'd just like to get in touch with you, and don't worry, we won't share your data around without any permission. All right, so yeah, you have our word for that. But we'd like to get in touch with you, and if you need any help as well, yeah, we would connect you to those that can help you in your business and in the workplace. All right, we've come to the end of this evening. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Joel. I'm part of the team at Workplace and at the River, and it's been my pleasure to host you this evening. See you again next week. Bye-bye.